Hello, my name is Janne Kauhanen, and I'm the host and saunamajori of Cybersecurity Sauna. Today's special episode was recorded on site at the WithSecure Sphere 23 Cybersecurity On Conference in Helsinki, where we had an opportunity to talk to some of the guest speakers. So I've just been joined by WithSecure's CISO Christine Bejerasco to have a conversation about shifting left. You were talking about that earlier here at Sphere. What is that? What is shifting left for a CISO? What does that mean?
Thank you for having me here, Janne. So as a CISO, shifting left could mean different things. So the origin of the terminology really comes from software development, where you shift the effort, the responsibility, the accountability as left as possible in order
earlier
to
in the chain.
Earlier in the chain. And as a CISO, we can evolve this beyond software, because if you shift cybersecurity, for example, into the process creation stage, into the people's ways of working, into how you're building like certain methodologies within the organization, then essentially you can bake cybersecurity into the process rather than add it later on. Which is sort of like the same analogy in the software, that rather than have security later on, you have it at the beginning. But we can expand beyond software.
So can you give me any examples? Like, what does that look like in practice? How do you get to have those conversations earlier in the processes?
So for instance, I have used the example of the finance department. If they are revamping their process, because at times they're rebuilding their invoicing process, for instance, or if procurement is changing our vendor management process, that is a golden opportunity for CISOs to say that, hey, wait a minute, before you define your processes, include me in the conversation. We can perform some level of threat modeling in the existing process that you have and help redefine a new process with cybersecurity already baked in. Then the moment they execute the process, then it's shifted as left as possible to the people who are actually doing the process. And there I say they have already created a process that is secure by design as well.
Right. So I guess you sell this by saying, and then I won't be there to sort of stop you going live.
Exactly, because it's already ongoing. It's baked into the process. Then like I don't need to rubber stamp it later on and then they escalate it to me. Yeah.
So is this a big challenge? Like, or let me ask you this. What are the biggest challenges that CISOs are facing in their professional lives right now?
Well, it's linked to this as well, because if you think about it, in an organization, it's not every day that there is an opportunity to redefine the process.
Exactly.
And businesses are, it's continuously ongoing. And sometimes you can't always inject yourself or inject your team into something that's already ongoing. And you just need to juggle and manage the risks of that, find mitigations, and then find some level of acceptance with the stakeholders that these are just the risks that we accept. So these are some of the biggest challenges in the organization, like this juggling, and even in areas that are sort of like maybe one of the riskiest, we still juggle and we still accept the risk because at times it's the price of doing business. But when there is an opportunity that goes into redesigning some of these processes, I think CISOs should really jump up and down and inject themselves into it, because it's not every day that those times come. And then once the ball starts rolling, then your cybersecurity initiatives are already embedded into the processes in these areas of the organization.
But I guess even if it's not time to have those conversations sort of organically in the organization, as a CISO, you can still sort of start those conversations. We've been talking a lot about outcome-based security. So just having that conversation about what are the outcomes, the business outcomes that this company is looking for, and what are the security outcomes that I can come up with that will support those business outcomes. You
absolutely can. And you're right about that. I mean, we can definitely have that conversation. The implementation time would probably take longer because you don't have the tailwind that something is already ongoing. But definitely, because once, especially if you have aligned this together with the executive team, that these are the business outcomes that we're trying to protect, and you can very clearly identify what are the risks to these business outcomes, and that these are the security outcomes that reduce these risks to the business outcomes, it makes for a much easier conversation and agreement. And once you have agreed, and then comes the execution and implementation. And this is the thing where I'm saying that it can be slower on that front if something is not already rolling. It doesn't mean you should ignore it, but you should just put it in your roadmap and take the time and manage your expectations with that. But that's why I said that if there's already something that's already ongoing, like an opportunity to embed cybersecurity in, that's a fast-moving train that you can just ride on.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to sort of give something to the CISOs who are, who feel now
they don't
excited.
have opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But they're excited about this. They wanna start working proactively, shifting left, and they don't have that opportunity.
At the very beginning, I mean, if you have the security outcomes canvas that we just presented today, so that already, if nothing else, if you just fill in what you have at the moment in your cybersecurity program and put in the business outcomes that they're aiming to do, you can actually already see that, wait a minute, this initiative is not really contributing to any security outcome and not really making any business outcome useful. Maybe it begins to be a good time to start questioning, what should we then remove? What should we then replace? And for that, we don't really need to wait for the whole organization to move. You yourself as a CISO could already use it as an area of investigation, like a one-pager that you can investigate. Look at yourself. Maybe this can be your mirror that this is what we have. And perhaps these are the things that I can make decisions already on.
Yeah. I think that's actionable for CISOs who are out there and who are, already excited about this. But for the ones who are still sort of trying to figure out how shifting left would help them in their work, can you give me like a practical example of how, do you know of an organization or an example where that has helped them, reach success levels that were previously unavailable?
Well, like various software organizations that have already embedded DevSecOps, of course, have quite a bit of success stories.
Yeah, okay, sure.
And that is really like the forerunner when it comes to the shift left. Because previously, I mean, we've had bug bounty programs in the end, where once your software is already out there, then security researchers may find vulnerabilities in it. You need to pay bug bounty, and then you fix the problem. But if you identify the problems at the beginning, if you perform threat modeling at the beginning, then you don't need to suffer through that. So that is one of the biggest success stories. But the thing as well now that I'm also beginning to see is that once we bake, for instance, into our legal contracts with different vendors, some cybersecurity elements, what I've seen is that you actually get to the point where the final vendors that you are choosing from are more cyber secure versus the other vendors that you may be having, because they just don't make it to the list. And I think on this level of success, that alone could help elevate the cybersecurity posture of your organization, one vendor at a time. So that's shifting left for the process as well.
No, that's right. That makes sense. So is that where you if somebody wants to get started on this journey, is that where you'd recommend them to start? How do I get started on this?
Well, for one, I mean, one thing that we have done, in our organization, we have baked into the legal contracts that we have cybersecurity elements that we give towards the vendors and suppliers that we're working with. And that is a very practical, clear way to start. It's also good to be discussing with finance organizations because they are very open. For instance, when it comes to invoicing. I mean, when there's an external that sends in an invoice, what is the validation process? Who are the ones who are allowed to wire transfer funds, for instance? How does that process work? And where are the systems that we can utilize to wire transfer? Is it everyone's system? Who has the access? So those are actually elements of finance work that they are very open to embed cybersecurity elements because they would, of course, want to be very secure with our monetary transactions. So legal area, finance area, they are very good places to start.
Yeah, exactly. You can easily get allies in those areas.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because it's in their interest as well.
It is in their interest. And you're exactly right in pointing out that it's about finding out what's in their best interest to also protect. And then you can work together in accomplishing cybersecurity goals for the organization.
All right. That makes sense to me. Thank you, Christine, for being with us today and talking to us about this topic.
Thank you, Janne, for having me.